You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Head on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Well, hello there, Broncos country, and it's once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I'm your host, Carl Dumler, and of course, joining me once again, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing pretty well. I don't want to offend anybody. I know that I'm wearing a Yankees emblem here today. I'm not a Yankee fan. I'm actually a St. Louis Cardinal fan, which might be more hurtful to people listening to this because the Cardinals have kind of been some of the more annoying teams, I guess, in the NL for the last 20 years because they've been good. But I like to go to a bunch of stadiums, and I got this one when I went to Yankee Stadium, years ago. So don't be offended. This is a Bronco podcast. You're at the right spot.
For sure. You and I, that's one thing we've bonded over is our love of baseball and, of course, the Cardinals and of course, then the Broncos. And so I'm with you. It's been fun to go to different stadiums. I think one of my favorites actually is Coors Stadium. There's not a bad seat in the place. Coors Stadium, Coors Field. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I'm a baseball fan.
Yeah, cool. I've been there a few times. I've been to a few games at Coors Field. I think it's now already like the second or third oldest stadium in the National League, though, because just like how many teams have started to build stadiums over the past. I mean, obviously Wrigley's older, but I think it might be Coors Field that's the next. So crazy how much those things change. Yeah,
it doesn't take too long to go from best stadium to worst stadium.
Arms race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, San Diego used to get Super Bowls, and now they don't even have a team.
Yikes.
But anyway, let's get to some football conversation. But before we do that, I want to let you know, Twitter, you can find us. You can find me at Carl Dumler, MHH, and Nick at Nick Kendell, MHH. And make sure you follow the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. And make sure you subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating if you can. Also, don't miss out on all of our great off-season content going on at milehighhuddle.com of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. There's lots going on, lots of different conversations. I know John Elway and Vic Fangio did interviews today, so lots of things coming out. Make sure you are being kept up on everything going on and know that this podcast is powered by Overtime Media.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Every night, local police departments across America receive hundreds of calls from burglar alarms. The vast majority of the time, they have no idea whether the alarm is real. Is there really a crime going on or not? All the alarm company can tell them is the motion sensor went off. Simply Safe Home Security, though, is different. If you're like me, and you're one of those guys who's hypersensitive to every single sound and is tired of having to sleep with a knife under your bed, Simply Safe is the solution. If there's a break-in, Simply Safe uses real video evidence to give police an eyewitness account of the crime. That means police dispatch up to 350% faster than for a normal burglar alarm. You get comprehensive protection for your entire home. Outdoor cameras and doorbells alert you to anyone approaching your home. Entry, motion, and glass break sensors guard inside. Plus, Simply Safe protects your home from fires, water damage, and carbon monoxide poisoning. It's 24/7 monitoring by live security professionals. You can set up your system yourself, no tools are needed, or Simply Safe can do it for you. And it's only 50 cents a day. That's peace of mind with no contracts. Visit simplysafe.com/overtime and you'll get free shipping and a 60-day risk-free trial. You've got nothing to lose. Go now and be sure you go to simplysafe.com/overtime so they know that our show sent you. That's simplysafe.com/overtime.
All right. Good to see everybody getting in here for the show.
Hey, I should tweet it out. Feel like Chad, if you're watching, I wish you guys would do that when we do that. But it's great to have everybody in here, get a little bit of normalcy. We see Terry Randall in here, Buana Beast, Ian Garrett, Cody Chappell, Mohammed Badri. So, I mean, a bunch of familiar faces in here. Sterling Donovan, Matthew Olivo, Shane Schaefer, Corey Linton, a bunch of faces that we've seen before. Brian Greenfield, Bronx legend as well. Really good to see all you guys joining us today on, what is it, Tuesday? With all this stuff going on, I don't even count the days anymore. It's day. And that means it's days that end in Y, am I right? I figured I'd use the upgrade to a better glass here for my my beverage choice. So now it's up to your imagination, but you can probably think a little bit Anything. Yeah, I mean, you know what's going on. Do you have your drink? Was that all talk?
I couldn't find some Coke, so I was going to have some whiskey and Coke, and couldn't find it today.
Not a Yankees fan. Sorry, guys. I just like sports, and I got paraphernalia from the stadiums I go to. So I even own a Cubs hat, and I absolutely despise the Cubs, but I get one from every single stadium I go to. I just want to finish that collection before I die. So, and I know it's not Zima, but I want a piece.
Yeah. Cubs would be buried in my closet or burned, one of the two.
Yeah.
So sorry for any Cubs fans that are joining us here. I hope you don't want to leave, but I do see I got a theology question from The Simpsons. Could Jesus microwave a burrito so hot that he himself could not eat it? No. That's my answer. I'll keep it short and simple.
I beat the devil in a fiddle contest once. No,
that's impressive. You are a fiddler player.
I am a fiddler. I played the Devil Went Down to Georgia 7th grade talent show. It was a good time. And I still play it in my mom's band from time to time after she has to go get a adult beverage refill, so I'll go up there and play. But anyway, topic at hand today, we're talking about the Broncos secondary, what they can still do to improve it. We got a super chat here from Brian Greenfield as well. Hello again, Brian. Still working. Working is overrated. Well, when you are coming here and talking football with you guys, it doesn't really feel like work. So, oh man, people are really hating the Yankees. I really thought about changing it, but I just
go change. I'll cover us for here a couple seconds here.
Also, we were talking about Derek Jeter, and I really respect the game from Derek Jeter, and it has nothing to do with baseball. He's just he's a great player.
We'll leave that up to your imagination.
Yeah, we'll leave that. Yep, exactly. But anyway, Broncos secondary today. What is the Broncos secondary still lacking? Obviously, they have one of the better safety duos in football. They have Justin Simmons, who was tagged, should have a contract coming up, hopefully before the regular season kicks off. Also, we are going to see Kareem Jackson back, a signing last year that I think at this point last year, we probably both thought Kareem Jackson was going to play cornerback. Is that incorrect to say? I think we thought Chris Harris Jr. and Kareem Jackson.
We thought he would be, kind of the hybrid that would be moving all over the roster. Because, that's
Which
what
he still kind of was. So was
right.
That's the safeties in the scheme. There's a lot of match quarters going on, a lot of versatility in the back end.
Yeah, he did that a lot at Houston. So I thought that he would be doing that here. And like I said, he did do some of that, but he still played a lot more safety than he ever did cornerback this past season. Some of that, I really appreciated that the Broncos decided to stick to their guns on what his role was going to be.
Yeah.
That even when the injuries started happening, they just said, nope, this is the best place for him. We don't want to lose talent at this spot to sacrifice to add talent to this other spot. And so I always really appreciated that. And it does seem like the Broncos are hoping this year it's a little bit more retooled there in the secondary. Vic Fangio, he did say he wants to play 6 defensive backs on a lot more snaps this year. And so this is why it is such a big conversation. I think it's being one of the least talked about that should be talked about for the Broncos. I know a lot of people want to talk offensive line. A lot of people want to talk wide receiver, and that's understandable. But it's still there's more to this picture. And if the Broncos pass rush that's looking really strong with interior and exterior pass rushers.
Exterior.
Well, I'll call them exterior, edge players, whatever you want to call them.
They're coming from the sideline. Hey,
if we get Brown, he can make plays from the sideline.
That's true.
I'll say that. But no, it is. It's one of those where you still got to have a pretty good secondary. And they did some plug and play guys last year that did okay at times, but it was easy to see that they just weren't up to par. And
we got a shout out to guys like Isaac Yadam, Devontae Harris, Duke Dawson, and Devontae Bosby, who is back. But I'm sorry, those guys, none of those guys played at a level that you want to do talking as far as cornerback 2, cornerback 3. That's just the simple fact of it. It does sound like, again, hearing through the grapevine, that Isaac Yadam and Duke Dawson will be battling for kind of a safety cornerback hybrid spot, kind of what Will Parks was last season. So that's an interesting development. We'll see if that holds true. Obviously, things can change after the draft, especially. But right now, the Broncos, they seem to be okay on their 1 and 2 cornerback and their 1 and 2 safety. But that third cornerback, that third safety, both things that this defense, listening to Fangio, watching them try to go up against a team like the Chiefs, you need that depth in the secondary. And right now, I mean, Will Parks is gone. Your third safety is Devontae Bosby, who flashed, but I mean, it was like 1.5 games. Devontae Harris looked okay in 1.5 games and then absolutely fell off a cliff. So how much can you count on that? It's a bigger area of need than many people realize at this point.
Right. And so I do think that's going to be a position the Broncos focus on. We have Ron W. coming in here with the super chat. Really appreciate it. And
thanks, Ron.
And your smile's bringing a smile to my face, man.
He's
Appreciate
got a good smile. I agree.
Which cornerback, free agent or draft, would you like coming to Denver?
Who's your favorite draft cornerback? Not just number one, but somebody that you like their style. Say a day 2 cornerback specifically.
Okay. Jalen Johnson.
Okay.
I really like his click and close. I think he's not close to his ceiling. I think there's still a lot of room to grow. You saw growth throughout his college career. I think he's coming from a great coaching situation there in Utah, that they've been able to produce a lot of great defensive players to the NFL. And I just think that he could be a guy that fits really well into the system. Even year one, he's still going to make some mistakes because, I mean, he made some mistakes there in Utah, didn't always have the greatest technique. But when he was locked in, that was a guy that I really like. And he has size. He has decent speed. He's not the fastest guy by any means, but he's a willing tackler, which is something I know somebody asked earlier about. I can't remember who asked it earlier, but something about CJ Henderson. And is he a willing tackler? Well, this last year he wasn't. The 2 years before that, he was a much better tackler than this last season. So you have to decide, was that him making business decisions, or was that something that's going to continue into his NFL career?
I get major Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie's vibe watching him. You know, big, long guy. He shouldn't be as fast or as fluid as he is. But when it comes time to do the dirty work, to be physical, to come in and fill that, the D gap up that alley, just doesn't do it. Not at the rate that you want, but massive upside, massive length. If you want a guy to leave there on the island, I like the tools. Gosh, for Denver's scheme, if they would have been playing this Wade Phillips team or the scheme still, where, you have much more pressure and much more guys on an island, cover one safety kind of going on, I could see Henderson then. But in this one, you're going to put guys in situations where they have to tackle. It's just, I don't love the scheme fit, even though there's a very solid chance that maybe he is the overall best player available when the Broncos are on the board at 15, and maybe they swing on that upside. I mean, either you can cover or you can't. Vic Fangio said that on his end of the year presser. So he's an interesting one, massive upside, massive tools, but I just don't love the fit for the scheme. It scares me a bit. And I don't like soft players. I think defense is as much, bring in a mentality as it is anything else. Granted, I grew up being the world's biggest Bill Romanowski fan. So I like guys who are absolute jerks on the defensive side of the ball. I'll just admit it. My guy, round 2, that I really like is, I'm going to totally blow the name here, but Noah Igbenanahi from Auburn. He's a former wide receiver player, doesn't have the best ball skills, but you watch him play. He's so smooth. He's pretty darn long. He's not the tallest guy, but he has a 32-inch arm length. He ran a 4.47 40 off the top of my head there. Don't quote me on that one. I know it was a pretty good 40. He's below 4.5. And I really liked watching his tape at Auburn this year. He was a guy, actually, shout out to a friend of mine, Alex Gade. We were watching the Auburn-Minnesota game, the bowl game, and they were talking, again, shout out also Todd McShay, saying this Auburn cornerback, a guy that NFL teams really like. And I'm like, I haven't heard or watched of any Auburn quarterbacks this year. Focused in on that guy, and he had a really good game. Him against Rashad Bateman, who's going to be a really good wide receiver coming out of Minnesota next year. So I'm going to butcher this name again, but Noah Igbenanahi from Auburn is a guy, day 2, that if he's there at pick 46, I would be a huge fan of him. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
I wanted to get this in here. Justin, really appreciate it that you've been such a big fan of the show and a huge supporter. Let's start it off. Hashtag Nick's Beer Fund. Hashtag Carl DeMann. I'll take it. I like it. Really appreciate everything, guys. And keep getting in everything as we go through this. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can, especially today about the cornerback. I know I'll see some here about and safety. Yeah, don't forget about that safety position. We'll be talking about that here a little bit. But Brian Greenfield coming in here with the super chat, really appreciate it. And says, I think with our front 4 should make the secondary a lot better. Wide receivers should have a good pass rush, and without that, it doesn't matter how good the corners are.
It's all synergy. I mean, you can't have great pass rush without great cover. You can't have great coverage without great pass rush. You need both. It's tandem. It all flows into itself.
I think of the Raiders game with Isaac Yiadom. It didn't matter how great the pass rush was. his guy was open every single time because the first one.
That's okay. Yeah.
the very first one.
Yeah.
He just got used and abused. I mean, he's playing 10 yards off, and I think he was just scared that he was going to get beat deep. So he just decided, I'm going to keep everything in front of me. And the Raiders like, you're going to give us that kind of cushion? We'll take 10 yards every single time. And
I don't know if he has the loosest hips or the best click and close to play this scheme. I feel like he's a guy who, if you have him up at the line of scrimmage and he can use his length and physicality to disrupt, you can get away with it a little bit. Granted, you need to get pressure and have some help behind him. But if you're asking him to be more read, react, off coverage, and have those hips be loose, have him react to where the ball's going or where the route's coming, that's just not his best skill set. So that's probably a reason that they're moving him more to a safety position where you're not having to ask him turn his hips, having to have that reaction as much. He can be much more methodical and use that physicality up the alley, which, I mean, Yadam is a really good special teams player. He's a good tackler. Maybe this is a good fit for him.
Yeah, I'm more trying to point towards the idea that it doesn't matter if your pass rush is great. If your cornerbacks, if they play that kind of off coverage, and now you could say that's a little bit of coaching too, but it also is kind of the trying to protect yourself from getting beat deep. I mean, a lot of coaches are very risk adverse. Bill Belichick, that's one thing. He's made an entire career about being one of the smartest guys on the field because he just doesn't make mistakes. He coaches up a team that doesn't make mistakes. They win a lot of games because other teams mess up, not because they actually beat the other team. It's just the other team beat themselves. And again, so if you don't have the talent to trust that they're going to hold up for that 3 seconds for your pass rush to get home, that makes it very, very difficult. And so that's why we're talking about the cornerback need for this team that, I hope Callahan's healthy. We'll see. I mean, even if he is healthy, he hasn't finished an entire season yet. He hasn't played an entire 16 games. So I still don't think you can trust him. Even if he plays 12 games, that's great, but I still can't see him playing every single game of the year. And behind Bouye and Callahan, it's a lot of question marks. I mean, Bosby had a couple of nice games. I saw a couple of people mention his name here in the comments. And so he has some upside. But
a very low floor. Right,
exactly. And if we're talking about Yadam, if we're talking about some of these other guys, Duke Dawson, right. There's a lot of question marks there of guys that are pretty average. So it's a group that would be definitely good to add to. Bronx legend, there we go, coming in. He didn't mind your New York Yankees.
Yeah, I guess maybe this is the Bronx that he's talking about. Maybe we're short for Broncos, but if you are in the Bronx area thinking about you guys, I know that's being very heavily hit.
Yeah. Anyway, he is in Bronx, New York. I see in the questions. He says, well, what you guys think of Murray in the second?
In the second round, if you're talking Kenneth Murray in the second round, that's a great get. That's value 46. I've seen most people talking about Kenneth Murray at 15 overall, and I don't love that value. But if you can get him round 2, him or Patrick Queen round 2, that's a heck of a get. So Kenneth Murray, I think, is a guy with a much higher floor. I think he brings a lot of that tenacity you want, but I have questions about his ability in coverage. We saw with Devin Bush last year, great athlete. Great athlete does not mean great coverage player. There's some technique there. There's some looseness in the hips. There's some intelligence that you got to have. And you just haven't seen that with him. So
did you see the Broncos' first release of highlights from Melvin Gordon? Did you see those?
No,
it was him. It was him stiff arming Devin Bush.
Okay. Well,
and
that's probably
I thought that was pretty fitting. There's a reason they put that in there.
Yeah.
If one of those linebackers falls to the second round, that's great value for the Broncos. It gives them a guy that could step in, play it at different times, different roles within the defense, while also having a little time to develop. Because, I mean, that's kind of the thing about the linebackers in this draft is they're not NFL ready. There's a lot of questions to things of just that you can see on tape of times where they really get themselves out of position. And while their athleticism covers that up some in college, like you said, that doesn't always translate then to the NFL, and teams will take advantage to that. So they could have a time to kind of think through some of that. But all right, Terry Randall coming in. Hope you brought an extra one this time, brother. Hashtag Nick's Beer Fun. What late round cornerback should we keep an eye on?
Do you have any? First shout out?
I'm trying to think right now.
I got some on the top of my hand.
Okay.
Well, I said that on purpose because Harrison Hand from Temple, 6 foot, about 195 pounds. He actually is a guy who tested extremely well. Not a lot of people are talking about him, but this is another Matt Rule recruited player for Temple there. Obviously went to Baylor, now is on at the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, but he's a guy that's very underrated. I also really like Kendell Vildor, a small guy. He's 5'10", 185, but man, he's feisty. He did pretty darn good in the season pre-draft cycle. I like him a fair amount as well. And Reggie Robinson is an interesting one from Tulsa that I like a fair amount. So some smaller school guys there, but there's some interesting smaller school cornerbacks.
Yeah, there are. Others that I think really late round guys, Stanford Samuels, Florida State, got some athleticism that he could be a nice developmental player to add to the list. Some guys from like the Senior Bowl, like Astang Bassi of Wake Forest.
Yes, he's the one that's interesting as well. That's kind of being slept on.
Right. Troy Pride is another, depending. I mean, I've seen
he went round 3.
Right. Yeah. It kind of depends on where you see these guys going in the draft, but there's a few names out there that,
Michael Ojemudia from Iowa tested pretty darn well long. He reminds me a little bit of Isaac Gannon, but I feel like he's more comfortable in zone than Gannon was.
Yeah, I saw him mock to the Broncos in the 3rd round the other day.
I mean, he's big, he's long, he's a good tackler, and he's another one that was a wide receiver convert. So Iowa's done a pretty good job over the recent years in developing defensive backs. So I mean, he ran a straight up 4.5 at 6 foot, 200 pounds. That's pretty darn good. So yeah, he's borderline round 3, round 4 kind of guy.
Yeah, can't disagree there.
So I guess I got to ask, we're talking cornerbacks here. There's some questions obviously going on here, but out of the top guys, is there anybody that you are, let's say round 1 through round 3 that you personally would pass on? So somebody that you feel is slightly overrated that you just wouldn't touch. I'm going to go first because you stole my guy last time. So you can think about it this time.
Okay, go ahead.
Still my guy. Mine is Damon Arnett. I really liked him early on. And, when he was playing opposite of Jeffrey Okudah and Sean Wade there in the slot, who I'm still a little bit sad didn't come out. Honestly, if he would have come out, we might be talking about him at 15, but that's, maybe 2021 we'll be talking about him. But Damon Arnett, cornerback for Ohio State. I liked him this season, but he has really had a rough go of it in the pre-draft cycle. He did not test the best. Obviously, tape matters most, but he did not test the best, which in a solid day 2 cornerback class, that's enough of a differentiator for me where it makes me a little apprehensive. But also, he's going to be 24 years old this season, so he's older for a player, which is not good. I mean, that's not great for Garrett Bowles, but it's even more important for a position like wide receiver, running back, quarterback, cornerback, because the drop-off is sooner than it is for offensive line. And for quarterback, you're minimizing that window. But for cornerback especially, 24 years old, not good. And then there are just ample off-field concerns with him. So there's way too much smoke. I know that he kind of fired back at some of it in the Senior Bowl cycle, if I recall correctly, but there's multiple people from multiple sources saying this guy has character issues. So that's enough for me. Being older, bad pre-draft cycle, and now also the poor character reportedly, that scares me. So I'm going to pass on Damon Arnett.
Okay, I'm going to go Bryce Hall.
Careful, Andrew Jackson here. I saw him asking about him a few times already. So he's a big Bryce Hall fan.
I don't mind him. Just the injury scares me. The speed concerns scare me. I mean, the fact that we're not getting to see some of his physical testing this offseason is what really makes me nervous for a player like him. I think that's why you could see him drop, because there are rumors that he was going to be like a 4.6 40 kind of cornerback. And a 4.6 40, I'm sorry, that's not going to go well. And especially in the AFC West, where you got some real speed that could be coming, especially if the Raiders take Henry Ruggs, which is a real possibility, or even Jerry Jeudy. I mean, whoever they take. And so that's why I just have so many concerns about him moving forward. I like the player. I like a lot of the tape that you see. I do think he's a pretty good scheme fit because he's better zone than he is man and coverage, but you still need to be able to play man coverage. You still need to be able to take a guy down the field and stick with him. He's long, he's strong, he has a lot of good traits, but there's just some missing pieces there that make me very nervous.
Yep, I agree with you there. So, and I want to ask you about one too. My other guy that I don't know what to think of him is Cameron Dantzler from Mississippi State. He's a guy that I've seen him on the ground way too often than what you should see. He's a tall cornerback without being long, which is concerning. I mean, that's his center of gravity is, he's 6'1", but he has short arms. And but then at the same time, his game against Jamar Chase and LSU was by far the best anybody played against Jamar Chase this entire season. So, I don't know what to make of him.
So my thought is a 1-game sample size is a very dangerous thing to get based on, for potential. The Broncos back in 2007 fell in love with a defensive end from Florida that they traded up for. And I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
It'll be in the comments here in 2 seconds.
I know. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that you guys are always on top of this. But he had a great bowl game. I think he had like 2 or 3 sacks and just really, then he blew up the combine, had some really great numbers, always looked good in shorts. But when it actually came to the game, he was nothing. And it just always stuck with me.
Jarvis Moss.
Oh, man. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
I remember I edited him in Madden where he was a god.
Yeah.
And he had like a 20 sack season.
Yes. Jarvis Moss. Thank you, guys. I can always count on you guys.
Thank you very much.
And so that's why I always really worry about that 1-game sample size when there's other games that you're looking at and other samples that you're going, man, that guy did not show up against other competition. And so that's why, yes, I would have some major questions. He has potential, obviously.
Yeah. Potential's scary, though.
Yeah.
But you're drafting guys for potential.
Right.
So it is what it is. A couple of shout-outs here. Broncos also.
Right. Nad Ludlow, really appreciate the donation here.
With the Mecklenburg jersey as well.
Man.
Killing it.
There we go. I just did a Broncos, what was it? Mount Rushmore of defensive players. That was one of my guys right there. And Bronx came in with another one. Really appreciate it. So I just want to let you guys know we really appreciate everything that you guys do. How you keep us keep names for me accountable. I appreciate that. I need that because sometimes Nick gets stumped too by my descriptions. But yeah. So otherwise, another one I do question just a little bit just because of upside. Christian Fulton.
Broncos did meet with him or are about to meet with him.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a FaceTime with him.
I like his game. I just don't love it. It doesn't make me think number 1 cornerback that you can really build a defense around. And if I'm taking a guy at 15 for the defense right now, that's what I'm looking for. That's why I have CJ Henderson higher than him, is because I feel like CJ Henderson has that potential to actually be a true number 1 cornerback in the NFL.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Man, if you rank any of Christian Fulton, CJ Henderson, and Jeff Gladney 2, 3, or 4, I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
Any of those guys, I feel like they're the same tier for me. So I'd be happiest to take the last of them, if that makes sense. So if there's like a trade down or a trade up and you can get any of those guys, I'd be happy with them. I do agree with you about Fulton's potential to be a number 1 versus a number 2 is questionable. He did play this last season with an injury, which that's admirable of him. And I thought his 2018 tape was better than last year. So that's a question for him. Maybe that'll make him fall. But I think he was tasked. LSU put a lot on their plate for the cornerbacks. And obviously Stingley is the guy with amazing tools. He'll be a top 10 pick in 2 years. But I think Fulton is still a really good cornerback. So I'd have no issue with him at 15. Not my favorite. But if they're picking 20 to 30, I would have zero issue with Christian Fulton. Cornerback, defensive line, wide receiver, offensive tackle. That's one of those positions. It's a meat grinder. You just need to continually invest in capital there. Otherwise, you're going to have issues. So that's my thought on him. I saw a couple other questions here. There's some other cornerbacks. I'll just toss them out here. Have you had a chance to watch much Darnay Holmes?
I've watched a couple of his games.
I thought so. He's another one that was kind of up and down. I felt like UCLA, once the season was obviously over, he kind of packed it up. But in I believe it was the Senior Bowl, maybe it was the Shrine Game, he was reportedly doing pretty darn well and while on the field, he's not always the most physical, but he's a chirper, which I tend to appreciate. A guy who likes to get in the wide receiver's face and let him know when they made a play.
Yeah, I like this one from Buwana. Ebenezer Ekebon played better than Moss. Yes, that was one of the bigger draft busts of Broncos history.
Yes.
Was Jarvis Moss. And that was a sad one because, when they made the pick, that was when I was really starting to get into the draft. And I just remember watching a few of his games going, man, why are they taking this guy? He looks like maybe like a 5th round kind of player. And it's one of those, now I can sit there and say, I'm glad I was right. But at the time, I'm like, man, I was really mad that I was right on him. Brian Greenfield coming in. We'll get to your other name here. I just wanted to get to his coming in with another super chat. I hope Ruggs goes to the Raiders. That will sure seal my bust prediction on him.
I mean, where guys land is half the battle. I mean, you can look at Sam Darnold is a great example. Obviously, quarterback matters a lot, but he had a heck of a lot of talent coming out and obviously still has talent. But 2 years now with the trash Jets organization, they look worse on paper than they did a year ago. And here we are. I mean, are we on high alert right now for Sam Darnold? I mean, is he about to be a bust because the situation is so bad?
Well, I mean, there might not be a worse wide receiver room in the NFL.
They have Crowder. They have Enunwa. That's pretty darn bad.
Yeah, and
they signed Perryman as well.
Still, well,
yeah. I mean, it's not great. It's not great.
Right.
I knew they had somebody else.
Right. But and this
I have
is
a question
why
for you. What's better? Let's say that Perryman's their number 1. Who's a better 2 and 3? Enunwa and Crowder, or Hamilton and Patrick? Obviously, Sutton makes it the Broncos are way better, and also they have Fant as well. But like,
I would probably take what the Jets have.
Yeah, I think I agree. But granted, Sutton is the major skill tipper there because he's so much better. He's a borderline top 10 wide receiver. But Tim Patrick and Deshaun Hamilton are not good.
Here's what I will say about Ruggs going to the Raiders. If they stick with Derek Carr, that is a bad pick for them.
Yeah.
Derek Carr is risk averse, especially after all of his injuries. He does not want to throw down the field. I mean, there are guys running open down the field, and he'll check down to his running back almost every time. His first read, if it's a deep read, he'll look at it for a second and then go straight to his safety valve. And this is why I do think that you're hearing a lot more rumors about the Raiders moving on at quarterback. I mean,
all 4 of these top quarterbacks are interesting. If we didn't have Drew Lock, I would be banging the table just to take a swing. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Love and Justin Herbert are not getting the love that they probably should, just because the upside. I understand their risk, but and I'm also changing my opinion. The farther we get out, obviously, knowing who Paxton Lynch was in hindsight is different. Total dingus. That's being nice. I'm not going to curse on the pod, but we'll try not to. No promises. We'll see how many of these I can get down. But that's taking a swing at quarterback is just something you have to do. If you don't have it, you're screwed. So you have to take swings. So that's why I have no issue with, Drew Lock last year, some people didn't like the pick. I'd have been fine with him at 10. Obviously, you got him in the second round. That's better, but you got to take swings. Otherwise, you're sunk.
Yeah. No, but like I said, I just think that there's a lot of smoke to the fact that Carr could be gone. That I'm guessing he still gets 2020, but I think 2021, like I said, wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Love is their guy.
That could be a team that moves up for Tua. If the injury stuff is going on, there's a lot of smoke in regards to Tua's injuries coming from people. Granted, I think it might be the Chargers in the end that take him. Maybe they bring on somebody like Cam Newton and move on to Tua in a year. Jameis Winston and Cam Newton are still out there. Those are viable quarterback options. Andy Dalton might get moved. So there's still some quarterback movement that's going to happen.
Right.
How these 4 play out is going to be really interesting. I don't think Jordan Love is getting enough. But there's more NFL love for him than there is media love right now.
Right. I do know, from a pretty reliable source, the Raiders do like him. They also like another quarterback that has not been listed.
Jalen Hurts.
Yes. So if they decide to go ahead and get wide receivers in the first round, then get a guy like Jalen Hurts to pair with them. Just some thoughts there, some things to kind of keep an eye on of what the Raiders might be doing.
Okay, I got to call Jody out here, though. Nick, was I okay with the Lynch pick? I absolutely hated the Lynch pick at the time. If you can go back and find my stuff then, I wasn't on Twitter then, but I was head over heels with Chris Jones. I was full on, and this was before he tore open his crotch around the 40. I full on Mississippi State Chris Jones infatuation. And also, I really loved Dak Prescott.
Yep.
So the guys that I wanted to come out of that draft, my favorites were Dak Prescott, Chris Jones, and Justin Simmons.
I can vouch for that. I mean, this is why we made the bets that I lost, obviously. I was a fan of Lynch. I thought that those physical tools, they could develop him into something. And it's just, and I still think if he had the mind to actually put himself to work.
Or the heart.
Yep. Those two things. I mean, for a quarterback, that is more important than you think. I mean, arm talent is great, but arm talent really only gets you so far. I mean, that's why you see so many of these guys that bust, that have great arms but can't do it. And then you got guys like Tom Brady didn't have the greatest arm in the world. Peyton Manning didn't have the greatest arm in the world. Drew Brees does not have the greatest arm in the world, but those guys are smart. They are driven. They put in the work to become great. And that's what it takes to make it as a great elite quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. And so wanted to get Paul in here. Paul, our man. Thanks. Love Bronco Talk. # keep the beer flowing. Where the beer flows like wine. That's what I always think. I did see a really interesting question here from Cody Chepa. Really appreciate it. Do you think we can trade back in the first to take a top center and then take a receiver in the second round?
Possible.
Yeah. I mean today
everything's possible at this point.
Well, and I would say they did talk to Vic Fangio today, and they asked him about where Glasgow's going to play. And he said right now they're looking at him as a guard. And so that does mean center is still a position of need.
And they had their first official online visit over FaceTime, and it was one of my favorite centers in the class, in Matt Hennessy.
Yep. So I do think that they're looking at center. We'll see what part of the draft they're willing to look at center.
It depends on how the board falls.
Right. And
I think they like Pat Morris enough where if they went next year with him at center, they could live with that.
Yeah.
Or do some rearranging. But that's, I mean, it's not probably their favorite option. Maybe they'd like to bring in somebody, some competition, maybe a better talent there, but they can live with it. And I think that's an important distinguishing factor.
Right. But yeah, if they trade back, the hard part always is finding a trading partner. That's where maybe if a Jordan Love happened to fall in the draft, maybe that's where the Broncos could get some quality draft capital. Maybe the Patriots sit there and say, oh man, we got to go get our quarterback because we don't have one. I mean, Hoyer, I'm sorry, that's not going to end well. Stidham,
it's going to be Jarrett Stidham, baby.
Oh,
I like
Stidham
coming out. He was my non-round one quarterback last year.
There you go. But yes, so yeah, there's some options there. And if the Broncos, this is the thing. I know this argument broke out on Twitter earlier today. We were talking about it in our group chat that we have on Facebook. There are some that are never receiver in the first round, people out there. And because we argue with them, people think, oh, you think that we have to take wide receiver in the first round. No, that's not the case. Broncos can wait to the second, third, probably not further than the third round for wide receiver. I mean, it's deep, but it's not that deep. So they can wait. It's just the quality drops off with each round.
Yeah. And also not only the quality, but like you need to look at prospects as like air bars, like where they can be is that high variance. And if you got a guy in the first round, typically you're going to have obviously the more higher upside, but also typically also that floor is going to be higher as well. So you're adding more risk on that hit. It's like playing a scratch ticket instead of a, high win chance penny slot or something. I'm not a gambler. Obviously you can tell terrible gambling analogies, but that's the biggest thing. So if one of the best wide receivers is there at 15, it makes sense. Obviously we should get back to secondary here, but that's just because not only is it a long-term need, but a immediate need as well. So, but if the best player on the board is an offensive tackle, if the best player on the board is an interior defensive lineman, then screw it. Trust the board. You have 6 other rounds. You have 4 other top 100 picks, and those draft picks, I mean, they're investments. They're not about the year one return. They're about what you're going to get 3 years from now, what you're hopefully going to get 8 years from now. So, you need to look at it beyond what's the upcoming season. But that being said, the wide receiver still makes sense.
Yep.
But I did see, again, Jody's saying, bring it up, Nick. I did see that it was Todd McShay had the Broncos taking Andrew Thomas at 15 and then KJ Hamler at 46. Won't lie, I wouldn't be the happiest with that pick. I'm a little bit concerned with KJ Hamler's catch radius, everything like that. And I think Andrew Thomas, because he's a solid guy, I think he's going to be one of the best of them year one, but he's best at run blocking. I'm building a team to be a passing team. It's just the most efficient way to build a team in today's NFL. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. We got back to the secondary from Chris Sanders. Thanks for getting us back on track. Appreciate it here. And of course, coming in with the donation as well. Delpit at 15 or Chin Burgess in round 3. Safety is the need no one is talking about. Aboot. I'm sorry, man. I'm terrible.
Almost spit out my beer.
I know. Hashtag proud of Canadian, as you should be. Hashtag Nick's Canadian Beer Fund. There we go. See, now you got to get some.
Oh gosh, I can't even think of a Canadian beer. There's a blue one with a moose on it. I can't even remember.
Okay, so answering the first part of this, Delpit at 15. No, I'd be pretty upset about that.
That's not
that. Delpit, I think, has some pretty high upside. You look at his 2018 tape. And there's a lot of these guys in the secondary. Their 2018 tape was actually better than their 2019. And so you got to kind of decide, where do they fit? You kind of worry about them not growing every year in college. Have they reached their ceiling? Was 1 year too much hype kind of thing? All those things play into it. But Delpit, I wouldn't mind if he's there in the second round for the Broncos. But at 15, I just can't see the value in that. Now, Chin Burgess in round 3, yes, please. Chin in the second round. Yeah. I think that's something that should be, I do know I think he's pretty high on the Broncos board. I think he's a guy that fits their defense very well. He has versatile ability to play all over the field. There's just, he's got size, he's got speed, he's got power, he's got a willingness to step in, make a tackle. He's got about everything that you're looking for at the safety position. And Burgess, I know that's a guy that you've liked quite a bit as well.
I love Burgess. Yeah, he's been one of my favorites. He's Will Parks. It's exactly what he is. He's a really good slot player. He can play that too high set, but where he's best is you're letting him use that ability in that slot coming down, being that third safety. So I think he's a better version of Will Parks. And speaking of Will Parks, I was looking at his snap count the other day. Let me see if I can pull this up here real quick. I was making a point, but Will Parks is listed as a safety, but last year from weeks 13 to 17 in the slot position specifically, he played 45 snaps from slot week 13, 44 week 14, 40 week 15, 30 week 16, and 50 week 17. So Will Parks, while he's a safety, his position, his usage in this defense ended up being a slot, essentially. I mean, they replaced Duke Dawson for Will Parks, and the defensive secondary got better. So that's a position, looking for a safety that can play that slot position. I think that's where you see Jeremiah Chin play. He played cornerback and linebacker and safety at SIU. So he's a very versatile player. Granted, when you're playing that level of football, you're that athletic, you can pretty much do anything. But I would love Chin in round 2. And for me, he's playing not only safety, he's the Kareem Jackson replacement in the future, but he's the immediate day one replacement for Will Parks in those slot snaps, where he's kind of that almost kind of a hybrid safety nickel / will linebacker. I mean, essentially he's what I would use Isaiah Simmons, the diet Isaiah Simmons role.
Yeah. All right, Paul coming in with another question here. Do you think draft day trades will be harder or easier the way things are for this draft? I know it's a dumb question. Blame it on isolation and no sports. Hashtag I have no March Madness.
Man, I have no idea.
Believe me, I understand my college team, KU, number 1 team in the country, don't get to have their tournament. So I'm very, very saddened. I thought they should have just handed the trophy to him. Since, hey, they finished the season.
I agree to that if you give Luka Garza the best player award, the Naismith Award.
Fine. It's yours. March Madness or NCAA, hope you're listening. There you go. We just solved everything for you. I do think they'll be harder.
Yeah.
I think anytime you get technology involved instead of being face-to-face or having guys in a room working like that, it adds a lot of complication to it. And, a lot of these guys aren't even going to be able to be in the same room. You're talking maybe John Elway working from his house, Vic Fangio working from his house. I'm guessing they're going to probably have a room where they're going to give everybody 6 feet of space between each other, and they're going to have about 3 or 4 guys.
Like a conference hall at a hotel.
Right. You're still not going to have the number of guys that you usually do. And so you're not going to have the communication quite there as you did before. I know the NFL, they actually talked about giving teams 1 round or one pick where they can extend time, a couple extra minutes to be able to get a trade done. just to kind of help negate some of this. I know they've talked about maybe making the draft like 5 days long so that teams have a little bit more time to work and do some things. So I do think that they're talking right now, trying to figure out how to help with this issue, because trades are a big part of the draft. I mean, it's the excitement of it. You see that little cursor come across the bottom and says trade coming in.
Bum, 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 bum.
Yep.
Bum, bum. The Broncos are on the board.
Yeah, exactly. It's an exciting thing, and they don't want to lose that. So I do think.
I remember last year freaking out after they made Dalton Reisner, and all of a sudden trade happened and it flashed, and it's like the Broncos traded. The Broncos traded after taking Reisner. It's lock. It's got to be locked, man. I was way too excited for that.
Yeah, no, that was a pretty exciting time.
But talking about safeties here, is there any other safeties that are worth talking about? I mean, obviously, Chin is a guy that we both like a lot. I'm a big fan of Burgess. But is there any other safeties that are interesting to you?
Antoine Winfield. Okay. Although I do feel like he's a little bit more. Yeah, and I feel like he's more of that free safety roamer than he is a replacement for what Kareem Jackson brings to the table. Xavier McKinney obviously is a name that needs to come up because he can play all over the defense. It would surprise me if the Broncos trade back in the first round and took him. Kyle Duggar is another one that deserves some talk. Ashton Davis of California.
Another one with injuries that's a little older. I can see the injury factor with this draft because of everything that's going on is going to be wild. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Laviska Shenault fall to day 3 because of that.
Yeah.
So somebody that I feel like is rising that is interesting is Alohi Gilman from Notre Dame. He played very well at the Senior Bowl, a guy that I think it was Ted Nugian that we had on here. Who did we have to talk from that? I think it was Ted Nugian, who works for The Athletic, but he brought up Alohi Gilman as a guy to watch coming out of the Senior Bowl that really impressed him a lot. So some interesting players there for the safety position. But, I think the big two, the Broncos are kind of looking for that safety linebacker nickel hybrid. And Jeremy Chin, who's 22 years old, or Kyle Duggar, who's 24, both guys that are really interesting. Grant Delpit, not my favorite. Good player in 2018. Concerned about his exact fit. But if he's there at 46, I mean, we can talk then, but not at 15.
Man, you were so close. Wannabes, Blue Moose beer. You close. Said it's a blue can that has a moose on it.
It tastes like beer. That concerns me. What does that mean?
Or moose drool? I don't
Moosehead Lager. That's another. I think that's the one I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Bo's All Natural. I've had that one before. Never heard of Creedmoor Springs Brewery. Moosehead Lager. I've heard of that one.
Chris Sanders came in for you. He's got some names if you want to look at those in the comments. But also, yes, this does. It's kind of a nice nostalgia thing with Jeremy Chin that he is Atwater's nephew. And so the fact that we could get two Atwaters that have played safety at a high level for the Broncos would be very nice to have there. And I'm sure Atwater would be very excited to be able to talk about his
nephew.
Yeah. And hashtag fake news. Sorry. Moosehead
is the go-to.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I like to drink local when I can help it. So, but definitely I'm a hophead. Anything with hops, I will give it a shot. I know I see Tina Fairchild here saying intrigued with Tanner Muse in the later rounds. He's an interesting one. I thought that he just scares me because he tested really well. Same with Caleb Wallace, I think, but Muse is the guy who tested extremely well, but it just never matched up in the tape. It's kind of that, who was an incredible athlete coming out of college that the Broncos took in the 4th round and never really worked for him as a defensive player, but as a special teamer, he was dynamic. And that was David Bruton. Absolute freak athlete. Killed the combine, jumps, runs. Stiff player, not always the best at seeing things, but gosh darn, what a special teams player. So, I mean, there's a role for those kind of guys.
Yep. And I've seen a couple people, Bill, coming in here with, would you either of you take Chin in round 2 in a heartbeat?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw on on Twitter, on the Twitter sphere, Nick and I did a community mock draft, which is pretty much you got 31 other GMs that represent each team. And we took Jeremy Chin in the 3rd. Now, we were really debating taking him in the 2nd. Like we had 3 names. We had Blacklock, we had Ezra Cleveland.
Got to say the schools and the positions. Maybe these people don't know.
Okay, Blacklock, defensive line.
TCU.
Yes, TCU. You got Cleveland from Boise, playing offensive tackle, and then Chin, safety from SIU. And we ended up going defensive line. Now, this was before the Broncos signed Shelby Harris back to the Broncos. But at the same time, you still can't have enough defensive linemen. And so we ended up going with Blacklock. But Chin he's probably second on my list. Cleveland was third. And ended up making it to the third round for us. But yes, so that would be one that I would highly recommend keeping an eye on for the Broncos, because it is a huge position of need, something they used like a lot. You said a lot with Will Parks last year. They're needing some replacement for that.
Yeah, that's definitely a great call. And Duggar, I mean, same kind of thing. Similar player, probably a little bit better year one, less projection, but less of an athlete, and 2 years older, which, I mean, 24-year-old rookie, that's, it's not the worst, but if you can get a 22-year-old one, you should take the guy who's 2 years younger.
Yeah.
If they're close. Now,
this is a great question when we're talking about secondary, kind of giving you an idea of players to be looking for. From Robert Caslow, really appreciate this. Does the Fangio defense use zone more than man coverage?
I saw somebody say they just turned on and saw the Yankees. Am I the wrong place? No, you're not at the wrong place. It's just sticking at home, hashtag, distancing. And this is just what I put on today, folks. So sorry.
Gotta be soon, right?
Man, I should have put on my Cardinals one. I just grabbed a shirt, folks. I get it, souvenirs everywhere. Definitely. The Fangio does tend to use more zone, but he uses both. I mean, you have to play some sort of man at this point in today's NFL, otherwise you're going to get beat. So he uses a little bit of both, a lot of match quarters, tries to confuse guys, rolling over coverages. It's right. It's much more complicated than what you see on Madden with like the cover 2, the cover 3, cover 2 man, etc.
Right. One of the unique things that he does is play what's pretty much a zone man, where they start out in zone, and then when somebody comes into your zone, you switch over to man coverage. And this is a way to have your eyes on the quarterback for the first couple seconds and then switch over to man, where all of a sudden you got tighter coverage as you go. It's taken some risk in doing that, because if two guys flood a zone, you got to pick which one you're going to cover, and it means probably one of them is going to be open. But at the same time, it is a nice way to really confuse quarterbacks, and it's why when – I can't remember who they were asking, but Vic Fangio's name came up as the best defensive coordinator in all of football from every single player that was interviewed. And so –
is that good?
I think so. There we go. Carl gets the full $5 due to that awful shirt.
No more Knicks beer fun. That's fine.
Yep. Sorry, man. That's what happens when you wear Yankees. You have to remember.
It's Jeter, man.
Last week I wore an EMT shirt. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I was walking out the door and my wife goes, "Carl, you shouldn't wear that. People are going to ask a lot of questions." It's like, they don't care.
I'm getting more crap about this. I saw somebody ask about any linebackers. I saw somebody ask about Akeem Davis-Gaither, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any day 2 linebackers that have your heart? Somebody that interests you specifically?
Well, yeah. There's Troy Dye would be a nice one.
Where at? Not round 2. Or round 2?
Well, okay, you said day 2.
I know, but that could be round 2. That could be round 3. Specific.
Oh. Okay, well, he'd be round 3 for me. I don't think any of these guys that I really like fall to round 2. It's hard for me to see Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen falling to the second round.
And I wouldn't take any other ones round 2 at 46.
Right.
I agree with you.
So after you get past that, then like the third and fourth round is where I'm really looking at linebacker. That's where you get your Akeem Davis-Gaither, your Logan Wilson, Jordan Brooks, Evan Weaver, Troy Dye. Those are a lot of the guys that begin to show up. Willie Gay is another one I've seen a couple people mention that I would really like for the Broncos.
Malik Harrison.
Yep, Malik Harrison.
That's one of my favorites.
Davian Taylor is another name to throw out there from Colorado. I'm sure you guys probably know him maybe even better than we know him. Really late rounds. You got Francis Bernard is a guy that I know you were really high on for a long time.
D.D. Harding is an interesting player as well from Illinois. Obviously, you got the guys from Miami, Shaquille Quarterman, but I mean, you can always take flyers late. A guy day 3 that I really like, injury concerns, is kind of the Jake Butt flyer. But if you're using a 5th round pick, honestly, it looks bad in hindsight, but it's a 5th round pick. I mean, come on, that's the point of it. You're taking flyers at that point. Yep. Yes, the guy that I'm interested in regard to the Jake Butt flyer is Marcus Bailey from Purdue. Had multiple knee injuries, but when he played, he was a top 50 pick. I mean, he was really good, and you're playing with house money. You have some extra picks. If let's say you keep them, if you want to roll the dice on Marcus Bailey in the 5th round, then by all means. Otherwise you're getting you're either taking a risk on a Marcus Bailey or you're drafting a Keyshawn Bierria. Yeah. Who cares? I mean, that's a late day 3 pick.
And Bill is right. This is what I was talking about. It wasn't players. It was coaches, offensive coaches talking about who's the toughest defense coordinator they faced. And McVay, LaFleur, and Kyle Shanahan all said Vic Fangio. So when it's coming from some of the best offensive coordinators in football, that should cause you to sit up in your seat and say, we got a good one there. Now, whether he's a great head coach, that's still left out there. Question. We'll see as we go through this. But year one, ups and downs, as you would expect from a first-year head coach.
Yeah. And Wayne here. Nick, you're a Broncos fan and a St. Louis Cardinal fan. Did we just become best friends, stepbrothers? Well, good news, Wayne. You're amongst friends here. Carl is also a St. Louis Cardinal fan. So I know there's a lot of Rocky fans here. I got some Rocky stuff, too. I pull for the Rockies. They're my NL team, or my second NL team. Yeah. But I don't know. I just like baseball teams. I like the whole experience. I like to go to baseball games. So I'll soak it in wherever I can go. Like I said, I even have a Cubs hat, and I hate the Cubs. I hate the Cubs. I hate the Cubs as much as I like a team in baseball, honest to God. But I'm just a hater. So
nope. I've actually been to more Cardinals games than I've been to Broncos games. And I live closer to Denver than I do St. Louis. But I also had a roommate that had season tickets. So
I've been to the World Series 3 times.
Oh man, look at you. Had to one up me, didn't you?
Jody giving me a hard time. I like baseball teams. What can I say? Also, I like Colorado in general. Kind of like I would say the Buffs are probably my second college football team. So just pulling for Colorado there. But obviously Hawkeyes number 1. And I would love to come to Toronto and watch a baseball game up there. That would be beautiful. I've never been to Toronto, but it looks like a beautiful town. So, guys, we don't have very much long left. We got to get out of here pretty soon. If you have any questions, make sure you get them to us. But, Carl, I guess before we get out of here, the biggest concern for you on this team, we got to go Rays. What? I didn't even know they had people crazy up in here. No, I see the nice hat there, the Mile High Huddle hat. Way to go, George Vandermark. Good for you being a Rays fan. That's one thing, man. Baseball, if you are a fan of a team that's in the AL East, that's not the Yankees or the Red Sox, it's got to be a hard life. It just is. It's like being a fan of Indiana in the Big Ten. You just get rolled over by Ohio State every single year. But so biggest thing for me with this defense, Broncos could look to go safety or cornerback year 1. What I do like, though, is something that they're showing right now. There are a good number of cornerbacks left on this market. You have Logan Ryan still. You have Dequars Dennard. You have Prince Amukamara. There's some other names out there where the Broncos, if they get a cornerback, round 2, maybe they trade around end of round 1, somewhere else round 2, round 3, then they don't have to go out there and get a cornerback from the free agency market. But there are still some names out there where they can bring in a guy who can be a 3rd, 4th option at cornerback if injuries strike, give some depth. That would provide some real options for them. Yeah.
All right. Couple last questions here. Bill coming in. Do either of you think it's very likely Denver moves up for Ruggs?
I think it's possible.
I think I would say it's very likely that they move up for a wide receiver. Whether that's Ruggs or one of the other ones, we'll see. But it does seem like that the Broncos have set themselves up where wide receiver is that one glaring need on the roster. I mean, there's other needs, don't get me wrong, but that's that one spot that you're just sitting there saying, of course, there's not a starter there yet. And so I think the Broncos have the draft capital to be aggressive. One of our own guys there, Bob at Mile High Huddle, he just did an article showing the Broncos roster. I think we're at 78 players signed on the roster right now of the 90. And so there's just not a lot left. And so they're going to have to do some maneuvering here in the draft. So definitely makes some sense there. And then Cody.
Also, Dre was released. Dre Kirkpatrick was released by the Bengals as well. I see Nico Perdakakis brought that up. So a good call as well. That's another interesting name.
Yeah. Do you guys have any sleeper picks for a guy on the roster who hasn't produced, who has a chance to blow up next season?
Great offseason question.
Yep.
Let me think about that for a second, Carl. I'm going to let you go first because this time I get a ponder.
I'm trying to let me think here as well. Give me a second.
Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones is the guy who I wouldn't be even surprised if he took Shelby Harris's starting snaps. That's kind of the role there. Maybe Shelby Harris gets more of a base look or that one technique in sub packages. And we saw flashes from Jones last year, but I really think Draymond Jones could be a guy who steps up this year and we're like, wow, that's a really good player. So that's the one that I'm going to say. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he stepped up and showed out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go, even though I'm saying cornerback is a need, I do think Bosby.
Okay.
He showed that little bit of promise there in those couple games. And I think I loved him before he played those games. I thought he was a great fit with the system when I watched him there in was it CFL or whatever he played in?
AFL.
AFL, there you go. I thought he was a perfect fit just watching him from that because he's aggressive. He's got that click and close ability to come down, make plays. And so getting him here in Denver, I thought he could really be that guy that stepped up and became a quality starter, not an all-star or anything like that, but a quality starter for the Broncos. And in a couple games, he showed he could be a playmaker for this defense. And so he'd be a guy I do think can prove himself well for this next year.
Absolutely. Well, anything else in the stream that you want to get to before we get going?
No, I just I'm glad we got the AAF. There we go. Thank you guys. See, man, this is why I love this.
You guys are the experts. I can just talk prospects. You guys can correct me on stuff. AAF, American Allegiance, or what? Somebody else tell me while I get the outro here. But you guys can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Make sure you head on over to Mile High Huddle, an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. I posted a few articles this week. Make sure you go check them out. Also, shout out to my wife. I know it's the end of the podcast here. People will be getting out of here pretty soon, but she successfully defended her oral dissertation today. So a few more hurdles before she's officially a doctor, a graduate here, but going to pass from the University of Iowa College of Public Health with her master's in epidemiology. So really proud of her. That was a long time coming today. Make sure you guys follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content by subscribing to the Huddle Up podcast. Wherever you listen to these shows, you can follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. For Carl, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Building the Broncos podcast. Carl, anything you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Just another one here from Terry. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of you guys. And can't wait to talk next week.
Oh, man. We get a shout out here from Nico for pronouncing the name right. See, every once in a while we're going to get it. And don't congrats me. I'm just lucky to be married to my amazing wife, who's probably listening in the door right behind me, making sure that I'm saying everything correct. But
it's bonus points.
Bonus points. I mean, she deserved it. She worked so incredibly hard. So I'm really proud of her. That's amazing. So thank you guys very much. Until next time, we'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place. Go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.